Crochet is not as cheap as people think.
No, really.
Of course you can crochet on a budget, but once you fall into the rabbit hole of ergonomic crochet hooks and yarn sales, your wallet starts to crochet a tear. So the question is, how much does it really cost to crochet amigurumi? Let's break it down. Hey everyone, if you're new here in the channel, I am Bianca from Crocheniacs. And if you want to learn how to crochet amigurumi from scratch, or if just like me, you love everything amigurumi related, then this is the right channel for you. And of course, I'll start this video by talking about yarn, because I think that yarn is where it all starts. And it's where a lot of our money disappears. No. And of course, when we are talking about yarn, type and prices can change a lot. For example, acrylic yarn is quite famous for being the cheapest ones. Well, I am talking about my own experience around here. And my experience is with the prices from Brazil and Finland, which are the places that I lived and now I live, and also a few countries that I have visited. So acrylic tends to be cheaper and around $2 to $3 each skein. And I'm not going to talk about the differences between those yarn types and which one is the best for amigurumi, the advantages and disadvantages, because there is a whole video here in the channel dedicated to the topic, which I'm going to leave here so you can watch later. But getting back, I mentioned acrylic, and now cotton is my favorite type, just so you know, and the prices can vary quite a lot depending on the brand. What I see that around here, they cost from like 3 to 7 or 8, I would say, like the most expensive one. And usually those skeins come in a bigger length, because usually they are between 3 and 5 each skein of cotton yarn. And for me, they're totally worth it. And the last one is polyester. These are a bit more expensive. Well, in Brazil, it's super expensive. Just out of curiosity for you guys, people in Brazil, they do love the amigurumi crocheted with polyester, the plushy, chunky yarn. But we don't have that many brands available. The good ones that we have are super expensive for Brazilian standards. Honestly, when I was living there, I crocheted 2 amigurumi with this kind of fiber, and only for me, because if I was supposed to sell them, they would be super expensive. It was not worth it. So in countries like my own, Brazil, it's hard. Here in Finland, I can easily find some plushy yarns in a local store for a very reasonable price. I think I pay 4 euros, but I see that the prices can vary a lot. I have never seen plushy yarns like super cheap. I have purchased very expensive one once. At least for me, it was super expensive. It cost like $20. I only bought one skein because I really wanted to try. It was awesome, very good, but it was a very big skein. It was like this. So yeah, $20, but if you count the length of the yarn, it's basically the same price as the others. So prices with polyester can be a bit more expensive, for sure. So to sum up this talk about yarn, what I want you to keep in mind is that it varies depending on the fiber and of course the brand, but especially the fiber that we are talking about. And the second thing that we need to talk about, crochet hooks. And again, of course, there are many different products in the market. There are the basic aluminum or aluminum. I love those kind of pronunciation stuff. Do you say aluminum or aluminium?
Say aluminum.
Aluminium.
I love that! Okay, but this type of crochet hooks can vary from $2 to $4. They are the cheapest ones. These are the type of aluminum crochet hooks that I am talking about, and they usually cost from like $2 to $4. They are super cheap. We have the ergonomic grips, like those ones from Tulip or Clover, which are one of the most famous brands. They cost from $8 to $15. It really depends on the store where you're buying it, but this is the range of prices that it usually costs. Again, just so you know, out of curiosity, in Brazil, it's way more expensive than this, unfortunately. taxes are awful. And again, of course, you can start with a basic and cheap one like that, but these kind of ergonomic crochet hook are really good to avoid any sort of pain in our wrists after we start to crochet for longer hours. And there are other types of crochet hooks, of course. There are wooden crochet hooks, plastic. I do have a plastic one here. I don't even remember how much I paid for it, but it was super, super cheap. I think even cheaper than the aluminum ones. I don't have wooden crochet hooks because I don't think they work that well for amigurumi, but there are some crochet hooks that are super expensive. They are like handmade. I think they're beautiful. I have seen stores on Instagram that they like make personalized crochet hooks, and I think they're awesome. I'd really love to try, but of course, since it's handcrafted, they are a bit more expensive. And if you're just a beginner, if you just want to start, you don't need those kind of crochet hooks. You can buy the cheapest one to give yourself a try. It's not like amigurumi is a super expensive hobby. I'm already giving the answer of the video right now, but please stay with me. And of course, when we are talking about amigurumi, there are other tools involved, like polyester fiber. Of course, we need stuffing to put inside the toys. We need safety eyes, stitch markers. They keep disappearing. It seems like 100 is not enough. We need tapestry needle. We need scissors. And these things that I am mentioning, they're not luxury. These are things that we need. Of course, you can replace stitch markers for yarn scraps, and then you save, I don't know, a few cents or a few dollars because they are not that expensive. But some things are mandatory. You cannot have a finished amigurumi without the polyester fiber. You can embroider the eyes, yeah, for sure, but sometimes you don't want the eyes to be embroidered. You want to use safety eyes. So these things that I'm mentioning here, they are sort of mandatory to have in an amigurumi. Of course, you need a crochet hook. Of course, you need the yarn. But I see that people get super excited when they start crocheting amigurumi. This can be addictive. I know. And I do have a lot of different accessories here, but now it's my business. So it's not an excuse for me to buy more stuff because I'm really conscious about how I spend my money. Although this is my business and like my source of income, I don't spend money like crazy. But I see that a lot of people like, oh, I love amigurumi, so they go to a store and they buy all different kind of stuff, and I like one brand, so I buy all the colors, all the yarn colors of this brand, and you don't even have a project in mind. You simply decided to buy everything. I see that many people do that, and that's when amigurumi becomes expensive. And of course, after a while, your yarn stash grows and you feel the need to other accessories like this one to insert safety eyes and a hot glue for some amigurumi parts. But do you need them to start an amigurumi? Of course not. You don't need this. But something that I consider to be a hidden cost that even when you're just a beginner, you need is something to store your amigurumi or your yarn or all your crochet items. Because even if you have just a few things, you need to put them somewhere. And we usually don't consider it in our costs when we start an amigurumi. You can start with a simple basket, and then you get excited and suddenly you need a whole shelf, for example. But at least for me, I do believe that storage doesn't need to break the bank. You don't need to have a whole room just for you or a whole shelf. For example, there are easy ways, easy storage solutions to organize your yarn stash and your amigurumi, your accessories. And you can buy those storage bags that goes under the bed, for example. I don't know, $3 for the people who are in the US. IKEA for us in Europe has lots of different solutions for storage, and they are cheap, or you can simply search on Amazon. There is one video here on the channel that I talk about how I organize my yarn stash in a very small apartment. This apartment here is small, but when I recorded the video, I was in an even smaller apartment. It was only 1-bedroom apartment, really, really small. And everything was organized, although the space was very, very tiny. And I use these bags like to keep the yarn under the bed, for example. They were organized and the bag was like $5. And as always, with anything that we decide to do in our lives, you can always put more costs into it. And now for the moment of truth, you might be asking yourself, is amigurumi really expensive or not? Yes and no. As I said in the beginning, you can crochet on a budget. If you're just starting your amigurumi journey and you're listening to me talking about all those things and you're like, oh no, this is too much, please don't say it. Stay here with me because it can be cheaper than you imagine. And I think that you're not only like spending money randomly, you're investing in yourself, in your creativity, in your joy, stress relief. There are so many benefits, and it can also be your side income. That's, well, for me, it started as a hobby, as a stress reliever from my former job, which is considered to be one of the most stressful jobs in the world. And I loved it so much that it became more, it became my side income, and well, yada, it changed to what I have today, and I have a whole business. There is another video where I talk about my journey. Although it's a bit old, I should probably record a new one. But yeah, that's not the focus. I don't want to talk about myself. The thing is that crochet can bring you a lot. There are a lot of benefits involved. I'm really interested in purchasing a book that I've seen recently called The Craft Psychology, and I truly believe that there is much more involved in the craft, in crocheting, that people usually talk about. That's why I say that it can be so addictive, because it brings us lots of benefits. For me, you're investing in your well-being. But in case you're short on a budget, what you can do is really ask yourself, why are you purchasing? And purchase things intentionally. For example, you don't need, and I always say it, you don't need a whole set of crochet hooks. You only need one. I usually use 1 or 2 crochet hooks, although I have a whole set with me. And having this set was like a dream, but I really don't need them all. Buy the yarn that you're going to use for that specific project that you already bought the pattern. So you bought one pattern. Check the colors that you need. Don't get excited in a yarn sale and think that you need 20 different skeins, because probably you don't need them all. And really ask yourself, like, is this a tool that I really need or just a temptation? And I'll let you know one example, and I have it here in my hand. This is a hot glue gun that I bought, I think it was Flying Tiger, and I bought for like €5. Very cheap one. I don't think that it's a very good hot glue. It's very light, it's very small and not very professional. But one of these days I saw for like €7, not that expensive. Another one that was way more professional. It was bigger. Whenever it was plugged, the hot glue was not dropping all the time, which is awful with that kind of cheap hot glue guns. But then I asked myself, do I need a second one? I know it's cheap, but why would I have 2 different hot glue guns at my place? I use it like 2 or 3 times a year. So I really don't need to buy a second one. And these are the kind of things that we need to ask ourselves before purchasing a new tool, a new accessory. I'd love to know from you. Do you ask yourself those questions before purchasing for your crochet well-being, your amigurumi journey? And what was the most impulsive buy that you have ever done with crochet? Was it worth it? Please let me know in the comments. Tell me your story, because I would love to hear. And now I'll leave you this video here because I'm pretty sure you'll like it too.